What is going on, people? My name is Eric Piccioni. I am an American living in Russia, and I figured I'd make just a massive list of differences between both countries, between Russia and America. So I've been living in Russia for over 6 months now, and I feel like I'd have a pretty good idea at this point of some major comparisons between the two countries. So really, I just wrote down a list of everything that I could possibly think of. And if I missed something, let me know in the comments. But realistic, what I'm going to do on this call or this video is just go down the list of everything, pros and cons of both countries. And again, you let me know if I missed something or if I got something incorrect, or let me know your thoughts. So we'll just get right into it. So from the top down, the banking system in Russia is a little different than what I've found in America. And I'm a big money guy. Like, I really like to get as much benefit out of my money as possible by banking and using credit card points and travel rewards and all this stuff. And America has some benefits, but more so towards credit cards. Whereas in Russia, you actually get benefits through debit cards, which is crazy to me, because normally the only kind of benefit you'll get is maybe some kind of cash back, if that. The beauty of Russian banking, at least from what I've seen, the bank that we use is, well, it's Tinkoff. So Tinkoff is it's like an online bank. There's no physical stores unless you're in Moscow. And we're in a city outside about 4 hours called Yaroslavl. So we don't have the luxury of going into a physical store. I've never really needed or felt the need to do that anyway. So the banking system, just from the top down, it's actually very generous on debit cards, because if I spend, call it 1,000 rubles, you get 1% cash back on that purchase. So you get 10 rubles back. So if you spend, 4,000 rubles, you covered a bus ticket and you can go on the bus and you can go to downtown and spend on whatever you want. So cashback is actually pretty nice. You can have 1% on all purchases, and then like 5% on select categories, and even sometimes up to like 10 or 15% or more on purchases, which is actually really cool, because for someone that spends a lot of money and buys a lot of things, this might actually make a ton of sense for you, because you might save or get, a couple hundred, even a couple thousand rubles back at the end of the month. And that's pretty awesome. It's money that you were going to spend anyway, so you might as well get some kind of benefit for it. So that's one. Instant transfers are something that I'm still getting used to, because in America it's very common to see transfers take 2-3 days, 2 business days actually. So Monday through Friday between 9 to 5 is when those transfers will activate. So if you send a transfer at like 8 p.m. on Friday, you won't see that money in your account usually until like Monday morning at 9 a.m. Whereas in Russia, if it's 2:30 in the morning on a Saturday and I send that money to a friend, I'll have it immediately. So it's really interesting how banking is often 24/7 here, where you can send money and get it immediately. Specifically with Tinkoff, I like the banks that they operate. They have 24/7 chat support, so you can message someone and have a response in like 3 minutes. So that's really nice. The deposit limits are pretty attractive, so you can deposit and withdraw a pretty hefty amount of money if you need to. I don't really use the ATMs, but I can imagine there's people that are more fan of cash. So having the ability to put in or take out a large amount of money, a couple hundred, even a couple $1,000s, or tens of thousands of rubles in a day is attractive, because in America you're capped. Most ATMs cap you at like $500 and $2,000 per day if you go to a bank. So being able to withdraw, even tens of thousands of US dollars, having that option is nice. I don't personally need it, but it's nice to have it. The investment rates are actually incredibly attractive to me, because I like to find ways to maximize the dollars that we have. I'm not a fan of like putting money under a mattress and just hoping for the best, or like buying gold and just kind of matching market returns or inflation, I would rather put that money into some kind of savings account where it's going to make something. Like in America, you'll have high yield savings where you can make 5% on your money annually, which is great. That's better than a traditional savings account. And the index fund, which is like the conglomeration or the combination of thousands of United States companies, are all in one place. You can buy the index and you get like 8% return. That's pretty solid. But in most banks in Russia, you can do a term deposit, which is like a certificate of deposit in America, where you can make 15% if it's locked away for 3 months. When it matures, you get the full whatever that is, like 1.25%. So easy math, if it's a 12% annual return, you're going to see 1% return monthly. And if you do a 2-month deposit at 12%, easy math, you make 2% return on the total balance. So it definitely adds up, and you can start to see some pretty nice compounding growth where your money starts to get returns on the money that's grown in interest. And it just, it's a nice way to like at least have your money kind of doing something for you. And it beats the heck out of like trying to grind your way to make 15% returns, or you could put the money away and make like 12% and access it at any time with some of the savings accounts in Russia. And then you've got a term deposit where you could stock it away for months at a time. Once it matures, then you can access the full amount with interest accrued, which is pretty nice, because the most recent deposit that just matured for one of my family members was like 18% for 2 months, which is nice. 3 months is like 16%. I think they're kind of fluctuating like 17 to 20% for like longer term deposits, which is gonna beat the heck out of a CD in the States. And I understand there's risk inherently with every decision you make. I'm just saying, comparatively to like sitting on the cash and not doing anything, I'll happily take 12% in a savings account, or like 15 to 20% in a term deposit. And that was pretty big. Kind of to match that, what's nice is whenever you go to a store and you pay, you can have the option to pay through a QR code. Maybe I'm out of touch, but I don't remember having that option in America, where I could buy something through a QR code and it would transfer immediately to the bank or the institution that we needed to use, if that makes sense. So like when we bought groceries the other day, I didn't have my debit card with me, so I ended up using the QR code as an option. It worked fine. It went through, and it was immediate. And that was weird to me, because I was like, it almost felt like I was PayPaling or Venmoing someone, but it was, I guess, directly going to the bank. I have no idea, but I thought that was really cool and just interesting. So that's kind of the money side, or banking side. Next up is more healthcare, and this is something that I've definitely talked to at length in my videos. But within the banking system, or the healthcare system, within the healthcare system here, there's a lot of differences. Definitely lower cost, and I feel that the care is often much higher quality. So my daughter got sick about a week ago now, and the doctor came to our house and saw her, and it wasn't like she was there in 5 minutes. It's not immediate care, but she felt sick and she got to see her. The doctor came at the end of the day, and that was really nice. And it was, maybe it was a couple bucks. It wasn't anything insane, because usually in-home visits, I would imagine in the States, are hundreds of dollars, or pretty price. The medical care, of course, it's more affordable. A lot of it is subsidized by the government, which is quite nice here, because you don't have to pay an arm, a leg, and a liver to pay for medical costs. So I appreciate that greatly. The dental care is much I feel like they're much more experienced in what they're talking about, and that might be me being biased, but I'm speaking from personal experience because I'm actually in the middle of getting my teeth realigned, because many years ago, my dentist, who had always been just saying my teeth are fine, there's nothing to worry about, I have no issues, I shouldn't worry about getting my teeth fixed, there's nothing going on. The first 3 seconds of going into a dentist here, they said that the baby tooth will absolutely cause problems, because I still have a baby tooth. It's a small one, but the dentist basically said, yeah, I mean, if you're going to keep this in, you're definitely going to continue to have issues long term. So it's in your best interest to remove it. So rather than sit around and delay another, God knows how long, figured I'd do something about it. And sure enough, ended up fixing, or in the middle of fixing my baby tooth and my overall teeth alignment. So we ended up getting aligners, which I have right now. So I started wearing them yesterday, and that was really nice because I have gone years with poor alignment in my teeth, and I didn't really think it was feasible, but my teeth are only getting weaker as time goes on because my bite is inaccurate, the way that my teeth are lined up. And I didn't know any of this prior to coming to the orthodontist and the dentist here, whereas in America everything was perfect, everything was amazing. And I really appreciated that transparent advice, because had I not known, I mean, I probably would have to replace some of these teeth completely, because they just continue to get chipped away, and I never know why. But it's because my bite is off, even just by a little bit. It causes my teeth to get weaker over time, especially at night when I grind my teeth. That little misalignment will cause major issues down the road. So that was pretty helpful. The next thing is the eye treatment here. It's actually one of the best in the world. Russia has some of the best eye treatment facilities in the entire world, and you could look this up, but a lot of the developments in eye care has stemmed from Russian scientists, and actually specifically there is refractive surgery, which is something that I actually would benefit from, or some version of it is related to astigmatism, nearsighted or farsightedness, just the challenges with seeing any specific objects can and was fixed and developed first in Russia. And I don't remember the exact scientist names, but it was really cool to see, because the eye care here is faster, they're more knowledgeable. People that I've talked to a couple times now have all said the same thing. They've lived in different cities or countries around the world, and they all get their treatment here in Russia. So that's saying something. And they've gone to Denmark, they've gone to England, they've gone to the United States. Not only is it significantly more expensive in those countries, the care would often be subpar comparatively to what you'll have here. Most of the people that I've talked to, there is such a thing where you need to go back to the eye doctor and get another version of LASIK in 10 years. And in some cases in Russia, I mean, I've heard people go as far as 20 years or never need to go again. And that's crazy, because I've always thought, everyone that I know in my family or friends of friends that have gotten LASIK in America have all needed to go back in 5 years or 10 years time. And I've heard plenty of horror stories. I don't hear them here. Maybe I'm getting it from a very select group of people. I have no idea. But so far, I haven't heard anything ridiculous to show me that I shouldn't get treatment here. So that was really nice to hear, is just the eye treatment as a whole. I mentioned this just now, but I just started my aligner treatment, and I actually have my top on now too, because I was basically on my last version of retainer for the top teeth. So I ended up getting my first few set of trays, and that'll be fantastic to start using them now, and I can actually get some kind of treatment again, which would be great. So hopefully in 6 months, pearly whites will be looking nice. One more thing within the doctor side is they're, again, very knowledgeable. My wife has been dealing with some eye issues for years, and we never knew what was going on because of her retina had there was like a disfigured shape, like it was kind of curving at some point, and we had no idea why that was happening. And within 6 seconds of the eye doctor in Russia looking at it, and they gave her some prescriptions, they gave her some medicine, and gave her distinct description or distinct details on what to do to fix it, and that was it. We went to 4 different eye doctors in America. They all said they couldn't figure out what was going on. Come on now, like at some point you have to admit that there's a disparity in knowledge between the two. I don't know exactly what the issue is. I don't know if it's, again, just the specific doctors that we went to, but it seems like it's a recurring theme that medical treatment as a whole in Russia, at least comparatively to the States, seems to be at a different level. And again, I have no idea why that is. I don't study that field. Maybe somebody can give me some clarity on what the reasoning is, because most people that I hear from that talk about, getting medical treatment here are pleased. I mean, they seem to have good experiences and little to no issues. So not sure exactly the situation there. Next up is there's a large family-centered culture here where, there's a lot of people that have a large priority on family values. And you could say what you want about this topic, but there is a reason why the President Putin signed a decree allowing people who want and seek traditional values or traditional family values to come to Russia. Like, there's a reason for that. It is a major issue in my family's view, in my view, that traditional values need to be continuous in the structure and the nucleus of a family. You could debate me all you want. That's what I believe. And I'm happy that Russia is the place that allows and supports people that want to raise a family to feel safe and to feel like they have a structure and environment to provide for their family in that way. With that, I feel the environment around Russia is actually quite different in the sense that there's not nearly as much crime. There's not nearly as many issues where I'm walking on the street and I feel unsafe. I've been here for over 6 months and I have never felt in a position where I am in a really tough spot. Now, I can't say the same about America. Like, a couple weeks before my wife and I left America for good to come here, there was a mass shooting at a grocery store 2 minutes from our house. And then a week after that, there was a school shooting. So I don't really understand why that is happening so commonly in America, but it is the way it is. To then move on to another point, public transportation here, I've talked about this a handful of times, but it's abundant. Like, you can get to where you want to go quickly. And I'm talking about this from my point of view. I understand if you live in a small village in the middle of Russia without any major transportation lines, of course you will have more challenges. Like, that is the situation. It's no different in most countries. But what's nice about Russia is I'm not in a major city. I'm in like a population of maybe 500,000 to 700,000, anywhere in that range. Definitely not what one would consider a major city. And we live kind of close to major roads, and we can hop on a bus and get to where we need to go in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, transit time included. And the beauty of it, and this is something that I didn't know until a couple weeks ago, is you can actually track where the buses are in relation to where you want to go. So you can put your destination and your starting point, and it can show you the buses that are going to go that route, what number of buses you need to get on, and the time that they're going to be there, like down to the minute. Like if I know I need to be somewhere in 30 minutes, first of all, I might have planned that poorly, but I can track what bus I need to get to and where I need to go to get to that destination the fastest. It'll give you all the options available within the hour of which route you can take. And I love that. I think that's fantastic to not need a car and be able to get around to where you need to go just on public transportation alone. And then other cities might have subways and whatever. Taxis are, of course, very helpful. There's those like rentable scooters that you can get, and those are great too. But public transportation is definitely abundant here. The food, I've talked about this a bunch, but it's definitely a lot higher quality for the majority of what I've seen. Like your meats, your dairies, all of your foods that are your necessities or your nutrient dense foods are often going to have way less processing taking place, which I've noticed. I mean, the milk tastes like milk. The bread is more dense. It's like a rock. You can't really squish it like a sponge here. It's something I've noticed, and I think it is what it is. It's not pumped with chemicals. The next point, shawarma and chebroeki. Chebroeki is like a Slavic dish. That's all. I'm just going to say those two. If you know, you know. That's why Russia is my personal fan favorite. The next one is self-reliance is a part of the Russian culture. They have this common mentality to everyone supports themselves and they're able to sustain life for themselves. Like you often find people with gardens, with vegetables, with fruits. They're all growing it themselves, and I think that's really nice. To feed into that, people here respect themselves. They respect oneself. They stand up for what they believe in. They're strong. They speak their mind. They're very bold. They'll tell you what they think. If they think you're wrong or right, they'll definitely let you know about it. So that's nice. And I realistically, I want my daughter to be able to see people who respect themselves, who don't wear pajama pants wherever they go, and they're in the grocery store and their hair's down, that they haven't showered in 2 weeks, and they've got flip-flops on and pajamas. I genuinely believe how you do one thing is how you do everything. And if you allow yourself to be lazy in tiny things, that will carry over into the big things. So personally, I think self-respect is massive, and I appreciate Russia for that. And one thing that I noticed kind of just bouncing all over the place now is construction is, to my view, a little bit higher quality, and a part of it comes from the weather conditions. Of course, it's colder here, so they need to have buildings that can withstand the weather. And like, for example, we're going through a major renovation with our apartment, and the insulation is insane. Like, we're setting it up so I can work from the balcony right next to the window facing outside, and I can't feel a single ounce of cold. It is extremely well insulated, and I could touch the window with my hand, and I don't, it's like you can't feel the cold. Of course, we'll see what happens when the winter gets here, but that's the whole point, is we'll lay like warm floors and all the whole nine. But construction quality is nice. The walls are thick. They're not paper. They're not held together by paper and a prayer. They're made well, and it's plaster. There's some kind of material. It's like almost concrete mixed with plaster, something ridiculous that makes up the version of drywall in America. And that's why houses are built so cheap in America, is they're not built with, decent materials. They're just trying to find the quickest way to build a house. There's also no insane hurricanes or tornadoes here. Yes, you will have some heavy rain, some thunder and what have you, but I haven't noticed any ridiculous rainstorms because I used to live in Texas, in the south of America, and it was insane because every time it would get to like August or September of the year, you basically have to just be prepared for hurricanes. Like it's going to happen. Insurance is insanely expensive in America for that reason, but hurricanes are going to come and they'll very likely mess up your house if you live in a hurricane zone. And every year I'm kind of just crossing my fingers and praying that nothing will happen. And this year a tree fell on our fence, so we're repairing that right now, so that's fun. But it's every year you got to consider, is a hurricane going to knock down a tree? Is it going to rip off some of your roof? Is it going to damage some of your windows or your house in general? Is it going to take your house away? These are things you have to consider if you live in some parts of America. Same with tornadoes. I'm not saying tornadoes are like only for America, but I don't notice anything insane like that in where I live in Russia. I understand there are plenty of regions where that's more common next to the coast, but I don't notice it here, which is quite nice. The nice thing, and this is the last point I'll finish off on, I noticed on the positive side, at least with Russia, the nice thing I noticed about Russia is their people are very kind. They're very generous. They're very giving. And you'll notice this if you become friends with a Russian or you go into a Russian babushka's house, they'll give you like snacks like you wouldn't believe. It is customary to come into someone's house in Russia, be offered tea, be offered snacks, and to have like a whole assortment of goodies that you can eat with or eat from. And I thought that's cool because it's like an event. When someone comes in, you want to impress them and just make sure that they're comfortable and they're well fed. Basically want them to be, you never want them to be hungry leaving your house is the way to say it. So that's the final point of points on pro or for or why I like Russia. Here's some points that are not so much against Russia, but just some observations I've made around Russia as a whole. So this isn't some paradise. There are some level of disadvantages of living here. Number one is if you don't speak the language, it's very difficult. Like that's not rocket science. That is a very ordinary thing when you move to a country and you don't speak the language. The grammar is ridiculously difficult, at least for me. It's something I struggle with all the time. I barely speak to people. I just understand sign language to the point where I can ask for basic necessities and I go about my business. Like I can go to a restaurant, I can order food, I can read some of the menu and can order basic things from the grocery store. Nothing crazy. Like I'm not about to go apply in quantum physics in the science department in Russia, but I can get by perfectly fine on my own, at least enough. Now, thankfully, I'm married to a Russian woman who knows the language and can help with all of the legalities, the documents, all the paperwork. Normally, I would do that, but I don't know the language and I don't want to make a mistake. So that's definitely the biggest one to me. The other one, and this is something that is common outside of Moscow and St. Petersburg, where like roads and maintenance are delayed or can definitely be delayed for quite some time. So for example, our apartment complex that we live in, the siding has been in repair for a couple months now, and I am always shocked because it's like maintenance shouldn't be taking so long, but it does, and it's just part of life here. Similar to roads, like that's a common complaint people have, is how long or how many potholes there are. And that's true. I mean, there are plenty of potholes in the road in some cities and like villages and what have you, especially in the country house and areas where aren't visited or driven on as much and aren't like main government roads. So most of the roads, the main roads, are no issue, but it's when you get to the side roads is where you have a lot of potholes and you have to drive around them and, you know, weave through, which is, you know, it's understandable. I had a lot of that same experience in Louisiana, and it was common to drive near and around potholes. The weather, that's a given. You're in Russia. It's going to be cold. It's colder year round. It's like 6 months out of the year. Some would consider cold, even more depending on the region you're living in, like Siberia. You can expect snow starting in October, and that was new to me. So coming in, I didn't understand how cold it got or how soon it got cold. Like, it's not like I'm against the cold. You can always put more layers on. You can't really take so many off. You don't want to be a weirdo. So that was big. To that point, you have to understand that the elevation and where you are in the world, it gets darker sooner in the winter time, and it gets lighter later in the summer. So you could wake up at 3 a.m. in the summer and it's this bright outside. It's crazy. And then in the winter, it doesn't the sun doesn't start to show up until like 10 a.m. and it gets dark around like 3 p.m. So you get like 5 hours of daylight in the northern regions. So something to think about. There can definitely be a lack of variety in stores. So like, one of the things that I love about Russia is that there's a convenience store or a grocery store in every corner. But at the same time, there's also a lack of total variety in every store, which I would rather just grab what I need and go. And if I need something specific, I can make an order online and have it delivered, or I can go to the store and take like a couple hours out of my day to do that. That's not an issue. I think the challenge more so comes in when it's like some people don't want to go to 3 grocery stores to grab all the items they want. I mean, realistically, that doesn't happen a ton. Like, I'm not picky, so I can grab what I want. But for example, in America, there is not a lot of grocery stores there's not a lot of grocery stores, period, in most areas. Like quick ones, they're mainly just big grocery stores that you can grab a ton of stuff at. Like Walmart is a good example. You can grab tires, you can grab bikes, couches, TVs, furniture, groceries, clothes. You can grab all of it, and a large abundance of it. Auchan is the Russian version, at least to my eyes, of Walmart. It has a large assortment of products, but it doesn't have as much as I'm normally seeing. Like, Walmart is probably the mecca of American grocery stores. It's just like the place where everything is, and it is it's different for someone coming into Europe or Eastern Europe or Russia or whatever. You don't have that same luxury of just a pure abundance of food and variety. So you do have like meats and alcohols and breads and dairy products. There's tons of it in Russia. Outside of that, there's not as much, which is again understandable. But for me, I'm like a big coffee drinker. So ready-made coffee, while I understand it's not the best for you, it's not like a nice healthy smoothie, but it is nice to be able to drink ready-made coffee. Tastes good and it's easily accessible. There's not really a lot of that here. There's also not a lot of peanut butter or tasty peanut butter options. There's also not a lot of kombucha. I talked about this in my last video, and I understand they're out there. You got to go to villages and all this stuff to like find it. But just from the point of convenience, from the standpoint of getting everything you want from one store, Russia doesn't seem to have that, which zero issue. Like I have no problem going to multiple stores if needed, if there's like something I know that they have, but you know, you can get by. Peanut butter doesn't run the world. So that was definitely a big realization against, or that I've noticed around Russia. The next one is getting products or reliable information on things is definitely a lot harder, at least to me, purely because I don't speak the language, and translating certain things that I'm looking for is hard to find. So for example, if I'm looking for a product that I'm wanting to get on like Ozon or Wildberries, which is like the Russian Amazon, I'm gonna have a hard time finding it because I need to translate it, and the translation for me would not be the translation for Russians. So a good example is the gym, the gym that you can install in the wall that has like a pull-up bar and a dip bar and all these exercise spots that you can do exercises on. In Russia, I would call it like a pull-up station in America. That doesn't pop up the same as it would in Russia. Yeah, you'll find a pull-up bar, but that would be what I would term it in America, and the translation doesn't really work. So you definitely have to try for quite some time to find the same product. It's more just like a language barrier thing, but more specifically with like reliable information, trying to find a good contractor or a good company to work with or a good product that's going to fit your needs, like a blender. Not having any reviews to go off of and kind of just relying on word of mouth is challenging at first, but I mean, again, it's expected, especially if Google doesn't work the same way here. It's not like widely respected. Like I believe Yandex will be your best bet for the similar goal or the similar process of finding products that you like or are looking to order. So that is that's a big one. Next is finding live sports or finding sports that I like watching in America, like my favorite teams. I like American football. I like some soccer games. It's hard to find that live, so finding it would be helpful. I'm not really having the most success with it. I usually just catch the highlights. That's the best I can do for now. So if anyone has any recommendations, that'd be appreciated. The electronics and appliances and bigger ticket items are actually quite pricey in Russia. So on a Russian salary, that's actually quite hard to afford. So, you know, that's definitely a tough one. Based on, most of them are actually American prices. So that was pretty insane. I mentioned earlier that the interest rates for investments is actually quite high. Well, naturally, to match it, the loans are quite high here in Russia, where your mortgage rates, your credit card rates are pretty intense. So the mortgage rates can range between like 15 to 20% or more. Your credit card rates are like 70%, which is definitely the higher end of what I've seen. I'm sure they vary all over the place, but you know, American rates are going to be closer to like, you know, 6% to 8% right now for mortgages, and then about 20 to 25% for credit cards. So the rates are pretty different here. This is more just an observation. I don't know if it's the way that my nose looks or whatever, but people definitely stare quite a bit. And it's something that I still need to get used to. And it definitely doesn't help when I speak English, but people, whenever I walk by, I'll just kind of look at them for a second, and they look to the point that they're next to me and past me. So it's very unique to me. And I've seen this a few times. Like I was in the grocery store last week, and one of the attendants would stare at me from the time that I walked from one end of the store to the other without breaking eye contact. And I got to the point where I like was almost befuddled that they were still looking at me. And I like looked down, I looked up, I looked down, I looked up, and they were still looking. So that was unique. So if someone could explain that, that would help a ton. Maybe it's I don't look normal, my nose is huge, I have no idea. So that would be helpful to get that understanding. One of the most challenging things to me, and this kind of wraps up the Russian side of the conversation, is things take longer here. Like paperwork, documents, renovations, the working hours, people, the start time for most companies is like at 10 o'clock, or renovations will be done, but they'll be done in a longer time span. Like for example, we had 7 windows that were replaced in our apartment. In America, no question, that's going to be a one-day job and they're out of there. It took 4 days for them to do the project here. I am perfectly satisfied with the work that was done. The renovation that we're currently going through, they're over halfway done. They're really now onto like the good looking stuff, doing the tile floor. They're doing the floors. They're doing like the wallpapers and the paints and all that stuff. But just the length of time that renovations in general take here, it takes longer. Paperwork takes longer. Delivery times for products, like when you order online, it'll take longer. So understanding that coming in would be helpful. Again, it's not the end of the world. Like convenience is a double-sided conversation here, where you can get things easier, but most things might take longer to get delivered, if that makes sense. So something I noticed. Okay, for America, this is now the conversation around things I've noticed that I appreciate about America since living in Russia for over 6 months. And I'll rattle these off. I've kind of touched them already. There's more affordable rates, more affordable loans, cheaper debt that you can get here. Russia, I think 90% of Russians are debt-free for good reason. The rates are insane for most things. And in America, debt is common. Debt is super common for people, and rates are again 6 to 8% right now. A couple years ago they were like 2% to 4% for mortgages, and then credit cards again are a little bit pricier. They're like 20%, but comparatively the rates are significantly lower across the board. The faster shipping times is a big one. So like you can order things now on Amazon, you can get it to you the same day. You can order at like 9 or 10 in the morning and get it to you by 5, or you could even order something at 2 in the afternoon and get it to you by the end of the day. So the convenience is insane in the regards of consumerism, and that can be good and bad, of course, where you've got things that are going to get to you faster, but it's also allows you to be a little lazier, and you can get everything you need delivered to you often same day. And that is insanely awesome, but it definitely comes at a price in other ways. Definitely makes you lazy. But there are some banks that are amazing in America. Not many. Like the only one I like is Schwab. They were the bank I used when I was in America. They have an amazing brokerage system. You can buy all the investments you want. You can have retirement funds there. You can have treasury bills. You can have certificate of deposits or term deposits like I was talking about from Russia. You could have stock investments. You can buy index funds. You could buy whatever you want. And I thought that was really cool. Entertainment is abundant. You've got concerts always going on. There's always some sporting event. There's something you can go to every day and have some kind of entertainment. There's always a sports game. comedy shows, concerts, you name it. There's definitely an abundance of movies and shows and things to do for entertainment. There's definitely plenty in Russia, but it was something that I noticed is America is definitely top choice for most when it comes to entertainment. They seem to have the biggest focus on media and movies and TV and everything like that. So with that goes the opportunities, and growth opportunities is actually quite abundant. So like you've got career opportunities, you can start businesses. Again, talking about cheap debt, having the ability to get loans for cheap allows you to have plenty of money making opportunities in America. Comes at a cost, of course. It is extremely pricey to live there, which we'll touch on in a sec. The quick access to hospital treatment, it's very easy to get a visit to the hospital. It's going to cost you, but you will be able to get in pretty quick and get out of there and have everything done. The equipment is often very modern. It's clean, it's efficient, and it's quick. So that was something too. I talked about this earlier, but you can find just about anything you want in a store like Walmart. You can go and get TVs, furniture, couches, car material. You can get tires, you can get everything, groceries, clothes, you name it, electronics, appliances, it's all there. So that is a new one for some people. Like we even have grocery stores in the South and some of the Midwest called Buc-ee's. It's a gas station that you can buy clothing, there's cafeteria, there's just so much stuff. It's so massive. It's like widely known across America as just this ridiculous gas station that offers so much for people. And it's common for American stores to have just a pure abundance of stuff to get. So I thought that was really interesting. Lastly, points against America. Definitely one of the most expensive countries in the world. It is a pay-to-play country. You do not expect to come to America and have a ton of savings left over unless you have like a really, really, really good job. The sending money can definitely be a hassle. I talked about this earlier, but like banking, you send money on Friday night, you won't get it until Monday, especially if it's like sent through a bank. That was pretty wild to me. Debt is very common. So you're going to run into situations where you have every one of your friends has student loan debt. You have people that have medical debt. You have people that are spending just so much money because they got a loan for cheap, and now they're $200,000 in debt. So something that was pretty new to me is how much debt is normalized in America. And to that point, something else that's normalized is the fact that it is extremely unhealthy to eat just about all the food in America. You've got your produce that is often grown through chemicals, and they inject a bunch of chemicals into it to make the apples bigger and the fruit last year round. Like, it's not normal for cherries to be around in off season. and you can go into a grocery store and get just about any fruit or vegetable that you want, and that's beyond me. Like, I don't know how that's even possible without some kind of genetic process. And again, same thing with meats and seafoods and what have you. It is very common to have food that is grown or produced chemically or some kind of genetically modified process. And I definitely don't agree with any of it. And then for that point, I talked about this earlier, but crime is often rampant in the States, and it's a large part of it comes from the income disparity, where people who don't have a lot of money don't have a lot of choices, so they result to crime, or poor districts all throughout America. It's just so common for people to get involved in dangerous activities and gangs and all this stuff. And again, like 2 weeks prior to my wife and I leaving, there was a mass shooting at a grocery store a couple minutes from our house, and I just don't think that any of that is okay. So that was pretty ridiculous. Oftentimes quality is sacrificed for convenience and speed, and what I mean by that is, if people in America can find a way to do something faster, cheaper, and a little bit more conveniently, they will. So it's common to find cookie cutter homes in America where you have 200 of the same houses, all built the exact same way. You might have some variance in the layout of the building, but the general floor plan is going to be the exact same from every single build. And they're called cookie cutter homes in the suburbs of America. And they're often new builds that are built in like 6 months or less, 4 to 6 months. And you've got a house that doesn't sound very, very safe. And they're often built quickly, cheaply, with like crap material. And you see it all the time that the houses are falling over because they're held together just like with wood and nails, and that's it. And the wood is like even poorly sourced. So it's ridiculous to me. But for some reason, the houses are extremely expensive because the land is expensive. And all of a sudden now your house is worth $500,000, but the quality of the materials is like $150,000. It doesn't make much sense. And this is definitely one of the more political points. I try not to make this channel about politics, but the problem is with America is that these traditional values are being pushed out of the school system. They're being pushed out of the media, and the woke culture is taking over, where people have lost sight of religion. They've lost sight of what really makes a country great, and it feels like the country is more divided than ever. And I don't support that. And I think my family and I, we believe it to be wrong, especially when it's forced on your kids. It feels different. And I don't think it's right to go away from traditional values. And at least that's my point of view, my perspective. Like, Russian culture is so deeply rooted in traditional values. Their arts, people are very educated. They know multiple languages. They know their culture. They know literature, and everyone has a deep core sense and belief of who and what they are, and they know what a woman is. And I feel that Americans have just lost sight of that. And unfortunately, it's just not the place that I feel comfortable raising a family in. And yeah, I have family there. We are going to stay visiting them and come back from time to time. But I don't see America as this amazing place that it once was, purely because now people are trying to get more and more progressive with their beliefs, and I don't like that. So hopefully that cleared up everything. Let me know if I missed anything. Let me know what your thoughts are below. And I think a lot of people are asking if I would move back at some point in the future. No, absolutely not. I would not plan on moving back unless something ridiculous happened, like the world is ending, and even then I'd rather stay with my family. So I wouldn't trade it for anything, being where I'm at now. So I appreciate you watching this. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing, liking, commenting, hit some buttons, share it with someone, and that definitely helps more than you know. So I appreciate you greatly. God bless, and stay tuned.